Hi, welcome everybody to CEU Executive MBA Bucharest, Sofia, Kyiv Open Day tonight. I'm Thomas Lamel, the Senior Program Manager of CEU Executive MBA, and I'm happy to guide you through this evening. So what to expect tonight? First of all, you'll have the opportunity to listen to a program presentation. I'd be happy to present the program to you. Then you'll have the opportunity for a meet and greet with a current participant, followed by a keynote presentation by Andrew Heffler, one of our lecturers. And in the end, we'll have a Q&A session. Please feel free to shoot in your questions into the chat box or via direct messaging to me. I will collect all the questions for the Q&A sessions in the end. If you have any questions regarding the keynote presentation, I'm pretty much sure that Andrew would be happy to interact with you if you want to, but let's get it started right now. So thanks for your interest. The problem, the situation you are facing right now in these crazy times is the question, is an MBA still worth it? Because you don't have to go very far these days to encounter that we're witnessing fundamental transformations in the world in a century. In 2008, we've seen a big financial crisis. In 2015, we have had a large refugee crisis, and right now we're in the biggest pandemic in a century. And these changes are part of a much broader set of transformation that is taking place. Some of them are positive, but some of them are pretty dangerous. So the key question is, how do we as business professionals, how do you as business professionals prepare for this challenging and unpredictable environment? And the obvious question is an MBA the way to do it? We have seen an explosion of online education over the last 2 years, and I'll show you why we believe our MBA is worth it. So if you're interested in further education, if you're interested in an MBA or in an executive MBA, you usually start reaching for the stars, looking at the best business schools in the world because you deserve the best education out there. What you tend to find is mostly a very differentiated or mission MBA curriculum. Those leading business schools can be found mostly in the United States or in the United Kingdom. Let's talk about the ones in the United States. They offer a very certain expertise, a very certain perspective, or are mission driven. Of course, we know that these leading business schools offer a global faculty with top credentials. Their faculty is coming from the best universities in the world, and it's an international faculty that you can rely on. The same applies to the student body. Thanks to the full-time format of these business schools, international students move there, and you will find a very international student body in these programs. Also, we all know this from American movies that take place on universities and campuses. They offer a real American campus experience. It's not just about university buildings. It's about university infrastructure and services, but also about this feeling of belonging, connection, and about this campus experience. But on the downside, you will find out that these programs are pretty expensive. They start at 120,000 euro or are even more expensive, 120,000 euro of tuition, and in addition, other expenses like traveling, accommodation, cost of living, etc. Another disadvantage is that you are out of your job for at least a year because a full-time format doesn't allow you to stay on your job and study while you're working. Some programs require you to stay away for 2 years, which is another disadvantage of these programs. And speaking of being away and moving there, at some of these programs, you might need to relocate your family to stay together. So if that frightens you off, you usually start looking for MBA programs in your area, in the city you live in or in the region you live in. And what you will find with these programs, like here in Bucharest or in Kyiv, Sofia, or in the broader Balkans region, is a plain vanilla MBA curriculum. It doesn't offer a certain perspective, it doesn't offer a certain expertise, and it doesn't offer a mission. I already mentioned the faculty. In contrast to the global faculty with top credentials at the leading business schools in the world, local programs offer local faculty. And local faculty means that faculty is not coming from the best universities in the world, and they're not international. They're at the most regional. The same applies to the student body. The student body is not really international in these local programs. You will find students from the same country, or the most from the same region that you live in, but it's not going to be an international format. An advantage of the local programs, of course, is lower tuition than those compared to American business schools. You would find local programs here in the region starting at 15,000 euro to 35,000 euro at the most, covering tuition and expenses like accommodation and traveling. Another advantage in these local programs is, because they are taking place in the city you live in, is that there is no work interruption. You can basically stay on your job, stay in the city you live in, or at least the region you live in, and commute to the program and participate on a bi-weekly basis or once a month. So what we do at CEU is to offer the best of two worlds. Let's start with the most important argument, with tuition. Tuition at CEU without any scholarships is 29,000 euro. But in countries like Romania or Ukraine or Bulgaria or neighboring countries, you're eligible for a need-based scholarship. So you can reduce your tuition to only 15,000 euro. So you can basically split your tuition in half. Another advantage is that there is no work interruption. You can stay on your job and commute to the modules. I will talk about the modules later. At CEU very conveniently, which is another financial advantage because you will be on the job. CEU with double accreditation in the US and Vienna offers a multi-campus experience because the modular format takes place in Vienna and Budapest. So it offers the best expertise from two regions, from Central Western Europe and Central Eastern Europe, with an American flavor to it because many of our faculty are coming from the US. I talked about the certain perspective already and the certain expertise or the mission that some universities offer. And CEU Executive MBA offers such a mission. It offers the Executive MBA for the open world. I will talk about this philosophy later. But this Executive MBA is very much mission-driven. Since we are an international university, we offer global faculty with top credentials. All of our faculty members come from the best universities in the world, like Harvard, Berkeley, Stanford, MIT, Columbia University, etc., etc. And another advantage is they are international. They're from 5 continents, basically, to represent diversity and academic excellence around the world. And so is our international student body. We are the second most international university in the world, according to the Times Higher Education. And this is being reflected in the student body, but not only in the student body, also in the faculty body and the alumni body. So your experience with us will be very international. As I already said, there is no work interruption thanks to the practical and flexible modular format. I will talk about this format later. We have an international student body and participants can fly in and fly out, which is a major advantage of the program. And when we say world-class faculty from around the world, we really mean it. I just want you to introduce to some of our faculty members. The purpose is just to give you an impression. I'm not covering all the faculty members here, just to give you an impression of our diversity and academic excellence here. Let's start with Professor Aistusenius with the PhD from Florida. She's an expert on marketing and in particular, emotional marketing. Or for economics, Mark Kaufmann, an expert in applied theory with a PhD from Harvard University. The course on big data and artificial intelligence will be taught by Miklos Koren, one of the leading scholars in this field with a Harvard PhD. If you're new to finance, Joy is a uniquely gifted educator. Generation after generation of our participants just tell us how she is just unique in explaining complex financial concepts. And she will give you the language in order to speak about finances with your stakeholders, even when you're a beginner. If you're already experienced in finance, you'll be placed in the advanced track course with Adam Zawodowski, a leading expert on complex investments with a PhD from Princeton University. For innovation, you'll have Mike Labelle, who holds the prestigious EU's Jean Monnet Chair. Or Sofia Barani, Professor Barani, with a PhD from London School of Economics. She's an expert on the future of work in the broader context, which includes automation, artificial intelligence, and robotics. And she will teach in your modules. Also, our faculty director, who is present tonight, he will teach in the modules. He's Professor Maciej Kiślowski. He's got a JSD degree from Yale, an MBA from INSEAD, and an MPA from Princeton. He's an expert on non-market strategy and regulatory affairs. You will have the opportunity to engage with him tonight if you want to. Last but not least, for strategy, you'll have Professor Yusuf Akbar, who has taught in more than 40 countries and advises leading Fortune 500 companies. So I already mentioned our faculty, but I would like to introduce you to some of our visiting faculty, which are obviously coming from the best universities in the world as well. We invite experts to teach your electives and your modules. For example, Professor Christian Zelos, an innovation expert from Stanford University, or Professor Miklos Savary, an expert on digital marketing from Columbia University. Another good example of our academic expertise is Professor Omar Hernandez, a professor of operations management from Berkeley Hess Business School, Professor Hui Chen from the University of Zurich, and Professor Paula Caproni from the University of Michigan. Just to give you an impression, of course, we have more visiting faculty to teach your classes, but this is just an overview of the academic excellence that we are happy to offer to you. So here's what the program looks like. As you can see, it's a 10-module program. The dates you see on the screen right now are not going to change. So you can basically plan your studying around professional and private family activities based on these dates. As you can see, we have 3 modules in the first year, which is the top row, 4 modules in the second year, which is the center row, and 3 in the third year, the bottom row, which gives you flexibility and balance in your life. You might have, especially Europeans, might have noticed that we are piggybacking around popular European holidays like May 1st or November 1st or August 15th, when it's easier for you to take time off your job and actually attend our modules over long weekends. In the summers, our bespoke and cutting-edge leadership program takes place in Budapest, which can be seen in the center column. And you'll have the opportunity to benefit from electives from the faculty in the world we invite to teach your classes. I've already shown you some of our examples of the visiting faculty. So one day, there will come the day when you finish with us and you will join CEU alumni from around the world. CEU is the second most international university in the world, and you can rely on an active elite network of more than 18,000 professionals around the world, basically on every continent. We have city-level chapters, we have country-level chapters. Basically, wherever you are in the world, wherever you might go in the future, you'll find CEU alumni to interact with, to network with, or to make new friends with. And this is a network that you can count on. And it's one of the key assets that we have. Speaking of alumni relations, we have a very American-driven approach when it comes to alumni relations. Our alumni are very much approachable. So you can feel free to, when you're a participant, feel free to reach out to them in a structured way through our alumni relations department. For example, if you're looking for a specific person for a person in a specific city, or for a person in a specific industry or company, they'd be happy to establish contact. Or you can freely just reach out through our social media groups on LinkedIn or Facebook, where our alumni are organized and are hosting city-level events or country-level events in order to interact with you. So the key question, coming back to slide 2, why we are able to offer tuition at only 29,000 euro or tuition at 15,000 euro when you're eligible for the need-based scholarship. The question is, how are we even able to offer such a high quality program at only 29,000 euro of tuition? And the answer is simple and lies in our founder and benefactor, George Soros, who created CEU with the mission to promote open society. Just recently, George Soros made a further contribution to CEU's mission by offering another $1 billion, billion with a B, in endowment to create the Open Society University Network, which means we are the best endowed university in Europe. So what does the Executive MBA for the open world mean? And what makes CEU so unique compared to other programs? First of all, when we talk about the open world, we mean skepticism towards hierarchies, towards dogmas, and privileges, both in context of how we teach, but also in composition of the cohort. Diversity is key to creating a successful program. And diversity for us is not just an empty marketing catchphrase, it's part of our DNA. Secondly, we believe in debate and radical rational thinking. Every idea can be challenged. We believe in facts and arguments rather than narratives and fake news, because it's narratives and fake news that create polarization in our societies these days. And we believe the best way to challenge this narrative-based discourse is to make arguments based on facts and realities, which is the hallmark of Karl Popper's definition of open societies. We are fundamentally opposed to all kinds of discrimination. And we actively promote diversity within our program. And the way we finance our scholarship, the way we finance the scholarship means we create opportunities for people who traditionally have not been able to actually join this program or executive MBA programs at all. So we see managers not just as people who deal with businesses and resources, but we also believe that managers go beyond that. They're positive change agents, whatever their profession is, whatever their background is. If they're coming from the traditional corporate world, if they're entrepreneurs, if they're coming from the public sector, NGOs, or civil rights movements, everybody can be a positive change agent. So what does the CEU Executive MBA classroom look like? Currently, we have 65 managers with an average of 14 years of work experience, including a minimum of 3 years of leadership/managerial experience. As you can see from the background image right now, we use state-of-the-art classroom technology and setups in order to facilitate discussion and interaction. Speaking of teaching, we make use of case-based learning rather than traditional lectures that you would find in local MBA programs. Because we want to take you, experts in your specific field, from the level of functional expertise to the strategic level. So of course, we offer not just the best on-site education, we also offer the best online education experience. So in order to offer the best online experience to you, every participant can choose to join on-site or online if they want to. In order to facilitate the best online experience for you, we have invested heavily in studio-grade microphones capturing the lecturers and the participants. Because we think that education, the transfer of knowledge, is not just a one-way street from the lecturer to the student, it's also vice versa. It also happens vice versa from the student, from the participant to the lecturer, but also among fellows, among participants. We also invested in large screens and high quality cameras to capture all these debate entries in class. We have created physically virtual breakout rooms for support teams. You can see these support teams on the slide on the left side. And we have created personalized virtual backgrounds. There's two aspects to that. The virtual backgrounds that you can see on the left side have a color code. The color code indicates which support team these people belong to. And of course, the name tags help people who are online, or if you're watching those people online, to allocate what the person said and who said what. And speaking of the support teams, of course, many programs work with group work, but our support teams are more than just teams for group work. In the support teams, we again emphasize on diversity. You will be exposed to as much diversity as possible in these support teams, because we hand select these support teams, and you will be in a group of people not coming from the same industry, not coming from the same country, not coming from the same linguistic background, in order to expose you to as much diversity as possible. Because we believe this is where the learning really kicks in. When you're exposed to different learning techniques, to different solution-making and decision-making processes, this is where you start to learn walking in other people's shoes and understand their positions. And this is basically diversity in a nutshell. Of course, we offer high quality individual support on every level of your journey with us, from the level of just inquiring about the program, to actually starting your application with us, to enrolling into the program with us, to being a current participant, to becoming an alumni or being an alumni. You deserve the best high quality individual support, and we're happy to offer it to you. So tuition is 29,000 euro. Basic tuition is 29,000 euro. People from the region like Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Ukraine, Russia, or other countries in the region, of course, can apply for need-based scholarships. Again, with the need-based scholarships, you're able to split your tuition in half, basically. Also, we offer an online option. So if traveling is inconvenient for you, or if you have underlying health conditions, if there's travel restrictions, whatever the reason is, you can choose to opt in for online education if you prefer. However, we encourage everybody to attend on-site, because our learning experience is just the best learning experience can be done on-site. Education is more than just watching a Zoom video about finance or any other subject. It's about interaction in class. It's about debate. It's about, that lively interaction in class. And of course, it's not just about lectures. It's about the socializing part. It's about having lunch breaks together. It's about having coffee breaks together. It's about having dinner together, going to parties. the whole socializing part that takes place after the in the evenings after the modules. In order to defray your other costs, we have negotiated special rates at partner hotels in Vienna and Budapest, ranging from the budget level to luxury. And we also have negotiated discount rates with partner airlines, for example, Lufthansa Group and Austrian Airlines, to bring you to Vienna and Budapest at lower cost. So we invite you to join this open world. The application deadline is March 27, and the application starts on our website, fully online. I strongly encourage everybody to apply as soon as possible because we have a first come, first served policy. So the sooner you apply, the sooner you are able to reserve your study seat. Of course, if you have any other additional questions or if you would like to discuss your individual situation, your individual application, you're invited to book a one-on-one consultation with me through our website to discuss your questions and optimize your application. So I think it's one thing to hear about the program from us, from the program office, because I think you have realized that we are very much committed and passionate about this program. But it's another thing to hear about the program from people who are actually in the program right now. They can give the best, the most authentic and brutally honest feedback on the program. And I'm happy to welcome Elena Inace tonight to talk to you. She's here in Bucharest to talk to you. She's Director of Applications, EDC at Segica here in Bucharest. And thank you very much, Elena, for coming tonight. If you could briefly...
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi, Thomas.
If you could just introduce yourself to our audience, like who are you and what is your background?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Hi, Thomas. Welcome to Bucharest. Always a pleasure to have you here. So basically, let's keep it short. I started my career as a mobile developer. I really loved doing a lot of creative work because, believe it or not, this is a creative work. But then I felt that I needed to have more impact in people's lives. And somehow I was very attracted to this, let's say, management positions, but somehow I think that it really helps me evolve my strengths. Right now, I'm the director of a software development division in an IT company, European IT company. I started here as a media mobile developer, and like my career was, let's say, evolving fast and very dynamic because I'm part of a very interesting and dynamic company and very nice company. But somehow I felt that I'm out of studying, so something that I really like, and somehow I needed an international experience besides what I had at work, what I have at work. That's why I was looking for an MBA, for an MBA experience, but not in Romania, not with people that I know with the same culture, and maybe not at other universities that have people from like 1 or 2 countries. Coincidentally, I met one of the teachers, you know that, and she was like, "You have to come here. This is amazing. CEU is amazing, and has a lot of potential to develop and become, I think, become the best in the world." So fingers crossed on that. So yeah, this is my career. I like to learn a lot. I like to learn every day, and I feel that here I can like challenge my own beliefs every day. Like what I like about the CEU Executive MBA, it's that our teachers don't tell us what to do. There's no dogma here. It's like we're going home and we're thinking, what did he meant? Like, and then all our thoughts are being put together, and they let us put our own fingerprint and our own patterns on the ideas. That's amazing. And working together with how many were like 65 in like 35 countries. 35 countries. In my support group, we're like from totally different continents. And yeah, that's an amazing experience.
I think you mentioned two or even more very interesting points. First of all, you opened that your professors encourage you to discuss freely without any dogmas. And I think just to clarify on the open mission or the open society mission that we have, open society is not an ideology. It's a non-partisan approach. We encourage everybody for radical rational thinking, whatever the party background is. We have conservatives in the program, we have Greens, liberals, social democrats, from the whole spectrum, because we're a non-partisan program, of course, but everybody agrees to the open society mission on being able to establish a forum where everybody can, freely express their thoughts and where every idea can be challenged based on arguments, of course, and not fake news. I think it's an interesting thing that you mentioned your professor who recommended the program to you, because I know her. She's teaching at the best universities in the world. Yeah. I mean, there's no affiliation, there's no pressure on her to recommend our program.
Exactly.
But she recommended executive MBA at CEU to you because she knows about the advantages and the strengths of the program. And one of the strengths that you already mentioned is the diversity. You mentioned already that people are coming from 5 continents to the program, which is perfectly true. We have Australians in the program. We have people from South Africa. We have a Mexican participant from the US, of course, from Central and Eastern and Western Europe, from the Middle East, even from India and Malaysia. So it's a really international program. But diversity is more than just diverse nationalities. It's also about diverse professional and social backgrounds. So we have people coming from ethnic minorities. We have people coming from other minorities like LGBTIQ. We have people with managers with a disability in the program we want to empower. And of course, we have people coming from diverse professional backgrounds, coming from NGO, from the corporate world, from entrepreneurship, the public sector, even from arts and the medical field. People are joining this executive MBA program. So if you're not coming from the, let's call it the traditional business world, or if you don't have a business degree, this could be the program for you. And if you're coming from the business world, of course, you could elevate your skills in this program, your leadership skills perfectly in this program. And the last thing that I took note of that you mentioned is that you are evolving to a strategic level. That's exactly the target group. We are looking for people who are experts in their specific field, whatever their field of expertise is, who want to move or are about to move or just recently have moved to the strategic field. So they are in a position of leadership for quite some time or in a new position of leadership, but want to improve the leadership skills. And I think this is kind of what distinguishes us from other programs besides the Open Society mission, that whatever your professional background is, even people from NGOs, they reach a certain level of leadership where they need to improve the leadership skills, even especially if they don't have training in that field, because they're coming from non-traditional leadership subjects like political science or humanities or liberal arts, etc. So whatever your professional background is, this program helps you to become a better leader and to excel in your leadership position. Is there anything else you would like to mention, Eleanor?
Yeah, maybe because you said that you somehow get to a plateau of, so let's say, of your leadership skills. I think that I've seen this, not plateauing, because I think that I have a lot of things to learn still, but I've seen this working in my support groups. I work with people from different backgrounds, again, different countries, different continents, but what's more important is how I look at some points that I I never thought I would look at those points like that, because now I see that people from that work in social impact industries, people that work in aviation, or people that work in a public sector have different perspectives, and somehow we accumulate one from each other, and you can see our growth through project to project, because you know we're in a project period. So I'm in a break right now, actually. So and you learn and you evolve, and like we're grading each other as a team, like ourselves, after each project, and we tell each other what we learn from each and each of us. So I think that's very important, the relationship that you create, and how much you want to learn, and you're open to learn from everybody there, because there's a lot of amount of information. That's how I see CEU. I'm very happy really very happy to be here. I think
you just mentioned the assessment of your module. We will talk about this. I'm pretty much sure it will come as a question. It will come up as a question for the Q&A session, how our modules are assessed and if there are exams, etc. So I will mention the evaluation that you just talked about more detailed in the Q&A session in the end. Elena,
by the way, I never thought that I would be able to do this kind of assignments and reports before, because I was never in the position, and right now I feel that's very easy. So it's something that not that I was good at. I've never done that. So
you gained self-confidence.
Yes,
in doing that.
Sure, yeah.
Well, that's perfect. I mean, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
I'm sorry we need to finish this conversation. I wish we could continue with this conversation, but we need to move on to the next part of the evening, to Andrew Hevler, who will talk about the topic making better habits on improving strategic communication. And just to introduce Andrew to you, he's an instructor and coach of the CEU leadership program, an actor, director, and trainer working in theater, music, film, and television for nearly 30 years. He trained actors, directors, writers, and a variety of professionals in improvisation and communication skills for over 15 years. He's the founder and artistic director of Grand Theatre, a member of Madhouse Theatre, and lead host at Brain Bar, Europe's leading futurology festival. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Andrew. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Thomas. It's a real delight to be here. And Maciej, lovely to see you. And Elena, really great to hear your words, to really get that feedback from the students and from the people who really contribute so importantly to the entire program and to its philosophy. So it's a delight to be here with all of you. I am coming from Sofia, and I'm joined by a lovely group of people in this room here. So from time to time, I'll be relating to you as well, to include you in this. As Thomas mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about habits, but I'm going to start off with this. Imagine yourself, you're in the car, you're driving, it's a weekend day, traffic is reasonably light. And in my instance, I'm driving the car and my wife is seated next to me. Now, my wife has recently taken her driving exam test and passed it on her third attempt. And the driving exam test is traditionally rigorous, and oftentimes people won't pass the first time or two. And her instance is exactly this instance. And we're driving and we hit this kind of incline. We're at the bottom of a hill and it's a very narrow road, and another car is coming down quite quickly. And I ask her, I think this is an opportunity. This car is being a bit forceful, so it kind of makes me pull off to the side. And I ask her, I said, who in this instance has the right of way? And she says, well, I believe actually in Hungary, it's the car coming down. And I said, right, interesting, because I, from California, a driver since I'm 15 years old, say, well, actually, it's the person going uphill because they're in a much more, let's say, vulnerable position traditionally. But we let this all pass. Now, I then begin to pontificate all of the really brilliant reasons why somebody going uphill should have the right of way. It's safer. The car situation is more compromised. Maybe the emergency brake doesn't work. Somebody coming downhill should easily be able to stop the car, etc. Well, what's going on here is I'm falling into the trap that most people do. I looked at some data on this. California has taken statistics on this for 30 some years, or 40 even. 90% of people consider themselves to be an above average driver in skill, acuity, knowledge, all of these things. And in fact, England did a very similar thing, and they actually polled all of their university professors, and they asked them, how do you consider your skill set compared to other university professors? And 90% of them, somehow a little bit more even, consider themselves to be above average university professors in research, in instruction, in presentation, etc. Now, I'm thinking to myself, this is really strange data. There's something wrong with this data, because this data actually goes into the corporate world as well. They polled different leaders, executives from different corporate environments, variety of different environments, and the results are the same. More than 90% of corporate people consider themselves to be extremely rational, very, very capable of expressing themselves in extremely objective and understandable ways, and they make really reasonable, rational arguments most of the time. In fact, almost all the time. Well, that sounds like more than 90% of the people consider themselves to be above average. So we know that there's something desperately wrong with this data, right? And so I have to take myself and suspect myself first and foremost. And this could actually, Matcha, please don't take this the wrong way, but us as university lecturers, we've got to consider this is potentially very compromising for us. So hopefully we don't fall into this. But what it really indicates is that we are very biased about how unbiased we are. And I think that this is an interesting problem, because if we translate this now into communication skills, and we say, what does the average person think of they think they're highly rational. They think they explain themselves very well. They have excellent reasoning skills, and their ability and acuity is above average. Well, that unfortunately translates to communication skills as well. So most people actually think they do a pretty darn good job of communicating, letting people know what's going on, expressing themselves, indicating what means the most, indicating what is the most valuable to be understood, indicating that the instructions have been clear, etc. But when we poll people in businesses and we ask the employees of these executives or the children of these parents or whatever it is, the numbers are exactly the same. The other side of the coin says that 90% of the things communicated and shared are done so insufficiently. So the thing is we've got this very perfect gap. And what it means is that we perceive one thing, but in actuality, what's really happening in practice, at least on an experience level from our recipient, is the exact opposite. The question is this: who's right, who's wrong? Now, I'm not very sure, and I know Thomas has talked about this exhaustingly, and I think it's exactly right. We've got to base this on facts. We've got to base this argument as best we can on the results. And I think that the truth lies somewhere in between. But what it means is that we have habits, and these habits are not advantageous for us. And for one reason or another, we have these habits, and they're very seriously ingrained in what we do, especially when it comes to a communicative or our communication habits, because it so deeply defines us. And so the real issue we have here is, why do we consider ourselves so vulnerable? Why do we consider ourselves so in danger of potentially admitting, I don't think I've got this quite right. I don't think I communicate this very well. I'm not sure what I said was clear. I'm not sure my reasoning really stands the test of time and absolutely in every case is rigorous and puts everything to shame. It's probably not the case, and it's certainly not the case exclusively. So why do we insist that we're right? And my supposition is that it's fear. I think it's fear. It's fear, and these are fears, unfortunately, that will never ever be able to really dissolve. The fear of the unknown future, the fear of judgment by your peers, and the fear of transforming or changing in front of those very same peers. All of these things succeed at keeping us believing in things that we actually don't have enough evidence to believe. We think we're fine. We've got it all straight. Everybody else has got it wrong. And this is where the program we have at CEU, I think, comes into play. because we don't believe that that's true, but we do believe that that is a real issue. And we do believe that that is a real problem in corporate, NGO, and in fact, any organization in the world. That communication, if you really look at it, the loss of resources, the loss of time, energy, effort, and money, the bankrupting of programs, the dissolution of different things happening, even just infighting and frustrations that may even lead to certain levels of success at times. They could be facilitated by creating much better habits and much more, let's say, team-oriented ideas behind communication. And that's where we come into this program. We start to look at what can teams fundamentally do to change their core approach to communication. And to change that core approach to communication means that you need to get everybody on the same exact page and understand that constructive, fair, honest, open feedback and the acceptance of it and the provision of it is essential to achieving excellence and transforming things that are less advantageous as habits and giving ourselves a pathway or at least some sort of roadmap to what habits and what types of communication behaviors that we can install as better habits that lead us to a much more advantageous place. And that's where I come in. That's exactly my focus in the CEU MBA program as a lecturer, is that I like to look at the circumstances and like to look at the stories and look at the realities of what's going on in all of our participants' corporate lives and really put them to the test and say, what are we doing that's working well versus what are we doing that's not working so well? And how do we get people to admit this? How do we get people to face up to these discrepancies, to admit that the gap exists between my actual perception of where I am versus the reality of what I do? Because the thing is that you are not a good communicator. You communicate well, right? Communication is something you do. Sometimes you don't do it as well. Sometimes you do it very well. And something enters into this factor. Something makes this either work or not. And the idea is, how do we get these habits built up? And that's where it comes to the idea of applied improvisation or using behavioral and attitudinal techniques that I bring from the theater world, where I'm training actors or directors or screenwriters, where we're looking at what the core of character is or what the core of behavior is, or how do we translate what is internal, an attitude, and turn it into an external, a behavior. And what we'll do in our coursework at CEU is we will take these exact questions. Where did feedback go wrong? Or where was this particular presentation unclear? Or what was not exactly successful by communicating this? And we actually dramatize it. We put it into simulation. We take very accurate accounts and stories of these things, and we allow the students to share these exact experiences of theirs. And they can watch other students or even themselves re-participate in this with this option of going over and over and over again to really isolate these behaviors and really pinpoint and identify the habits so that people come out with a much, much clearer, much more honest idea of exactly what's happening with them, of exactly what it is that they do habitually versus what they do really, really well occasionally, versus what are those defense mechanisms sometimes that we talked about earlier, where they retreat back into sometimes the more defensive, the more passive aggressive, or sometimes even the more aggressive behaviors. And that's exactly what we look at in this program here, is we try to take an approach that I think is extremely unique to the region and certainly unique overall in the world when it comes to higher education. We're taking these models, and many universities in North America and in England as well have already utilized these techniques to great extent. Universities like Stanford, USC, Duke, or North Carolina, or London School of Economics, they're using applied improvisation, dramatic theater techniques to really examine and look at these skills and help apply these skills into the world of business, the world of communication, and the world of basically human interaction, so that we start to take and identify the habits that we don't do quite right, and we replace them with habits that we do much better. I can give you a couple of examples of how this works. I had a lady, she worked with me on presentation skills and basically like influencing skills over the course of 2-day period. And she came in and she was absolutely mortified to speak to people, but she had a really strong strategic position that was extremely important to the business. And she told me from the very first moment she came in, I don't like presenting. I feel awful about it. I'm never confident. It actually makes me feel physically extremely uncomfortable, and I'm not sure I'm ever going to get anywhere with this. We started to really turn this into a very practical activity, taking all sorts of different types of techniques, getting her to stop focusing so much on herself and how she felt about it, start to understand what the purpose of communication is, and that is always putting the focus on other people. We took her through this entire program with 5 of her colleagues. She started off admittedly saying she did not want to do anything at all. And by the end of 2 days, she had actually exceeded any of the abilities of anyone else in the room. And that's not to say that they weren't doing a good job. It's just that she just made such a huge leap based on seeing herself on video, seeing herself through the eyes of others, getting the feedback from the group, building a certain common vocabulary with the others there, finding and building a vocabulary with me so that we find executable, manageable types of instructions and real tangible changes that you can make to change things. And I think that that's one thing I really like about CEU, and I really like about the program we have at the MBA, and that is there's a great commitment to the practical. There's a great commitment to the tangible, and there's a great commitment to investigating, and there's a great commitment to experimenting. And I think that that's the way towards excellence. So I myself, I can relate a story to you where I don't have it all right. My son, 16 years old, comes to me, comes the other day. Now I'm suspecting he's been smoking cigarettes lately, and certainly that's not something I'm thrilled about. And I know that this is happening, and in fairness to him, he has been an excellent communicator because he was very forthright, honest about it. He said, I've been smoking cigarettes from time to time with friends. And in this case, he's basically disarmed me. I can't really get that mad about it other than say, I don't want you doing it. And so I suggest to him, I don't want you doing it at home. I don't want you doing it at all. And so he comes home one day and he has the smell of cigarettes on him. And what do? I'm a communication trainer. I am an expert at this. I know these things, but I still let it slip out of my mouth. Oh, your shirt smells like Lucky Strikes. And he looks at me and he senses my slight bit of passive aggression in saying this. I'm controlling him instead of being balanced and fair and understanding in the game that we've already created. And so now I lose a couple of weeks of credibility with my son here because he looks at me and he goes, that was a passive aggressive jibe that you sent my way. And now I'm 2 steps back once again in the fight against cigarettes with my son. And so the thing is that we all slip back into bad habits from time to time. We all can turn that strange corner every once in a while and go back to some old habits that we have, some of those fears or insecurities that we have. And that's why it's the type of thing you really need to commit to over time. And you really need to understand that you have to put yourself into a position of accepting change, a position of knowing that you don't quite have it right, so that the habits that you have now that you're not pleased with can ultimately over time turn into the habits that you create great advantage for yourself and for others. You turn those 3 fears into strengths. And that is what I hope my wife will do when she starts driving, because I think that'll be safer for her and myself in the future, and all the other drivers out there on the streets as well. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your attention. And I hope and encourage any of you who are looking towards making a move towards higher education and getting an MBA program that you consider very, very seriously this program, because I think it's on a level that very few universities achieve, and for so many of the reasons that have been mentioned here today. So please reach out to these great gentlemen who provide a wealth of knowledge and hospitality about it. And for my part, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Andrew. If our attendees would like to challenge you academically, feel free to comment on Andrew. Just raise your hand or ask to unmute. I know there's one person who would love to engage with you now on the intellectual level, who is our faculty director and present tonight, Maciej Kiszlowski. He's the CEU Executive MBA Faculty Director and Associate Professor of Law and Strategy. He publishes in 3 disciplines: management, law, political economy. He, besides being a professor, he advises governments, international organizations, progressive political movements around the world, and he's a frequent contributor to international media, including Politico, Project Syndicate, Foreign Policy, and Wall Street Journal. Feel free to join us, Maciej.
Good evening and welcome everybody in Kyiv, Bucharest, and Sofia. What an interesting presentation, and you know, for a person who researches politics and its relation to market economy, especially in this moment, yes, and especially with the open day that is partly taking place in Kyiv. I mean, what you mentioned, you know, fear, influence, miscommunication, these are, for even casual observer of what's going on, these are at least important factors of why we are at such a frail situation. Yes, yeah. And you know, here in the West, we tend to view Russian behavior as, you know, completely unacceptable. And I'm not going to, you know, make any defenses here, but it's interesting to think that in your presentation, you show that in our, you know, we don't have 6,200 nuclear weapons at our disposal, and we still try to influence rather than inspire. Yes, we still want to kind of define our spheres of, you know, of power in our workplace, in our team. We are still governed by fear of others, you know, using our perceived weaknesses. So I'm simply saying that there is this narrative that what is happening is so unprecedented, and I'm not excusing it. I'm not saying it's good, but it's really, really human. It's part of humanity's history. Yep. Those instincts that are at play currently, and hopefully they will not go completely, you know, unbridled and rogue, and common sense will prevail. I really don't think there is something fundamentally new going on. No. Yes. And if people think that this is something fundamentally new, maybe then we have been deluding ourselves that, you know, human nature has changed. Yes. Mm. And I think, you know, going back to our little world of professional and personal life, and, you know, using very wise lessons from your speech and thinking, you know, when I have a little bit of influence or a little bit of power, how often do I use it in an honest way, in a mutually beneficial way? And how often do I immediately go into a zero-sum, let's take advantage of the other party? Yes. How often do I react in an aggressive way because I feel threatened, even though maybe the feeling of being threatened is more inside me than in the objective environment? Yes. So in other words, for me, I mean, maybe we should have sent you not to Sofia, but to the Kremlin and do, a coaching session there.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I think they would have been really open to the idea, Maciej.
No, but it's just like we are, and I mean, this place is really an open society. I mean, we are not kind of engaged in this like. We are respectful, but we don't engage in this, pseudo politically correct, let's pretend things are different than they are. Yes. And I think, your speech in this particular moment evoked very strongly those reflections, yes, on the situation we are facing.
Yeah.
I don't know what's your take on it?
Well, my take is always about, I'll be really reductive at the risk of being reductive. If we prioritize what we think are our interests, my interests, over what I think I know to be your interests at a variety of costs, I'm almost always going to behave defensively. I'm either going to attack you, to push you out of the way so I get my way. I'll either be manipulative so nobody gets their way. I'll be passive aggressive, or I'll be very passive and then I'll grumble and sit while you get your way. And then I can criticize or pick at you over time. And the thing is that basically that always happens because people do exactly what you said earlier, Maciej, is that you say, I've got a situation, I don't trust that we'll come to a good, constructive place of mutual understanding. So I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm going to take advantage of it either for my own benefit. I'm going to get my way. My way is the right way or whatever. But most people don't realize that if I take my interests and I take and understand and I try my best to understand your interests, and I realize that they are of equal value, and that we need to find a way that both of us at the very least are understood, we will always resort to something manipulative. We'll always resort to something defensive. And the thing is that's exactly the problem, is that people don't want to be above board, regardless of where they are, whether it be a political place, a territorial fight, a fight of might is right, or whatever these fights could be even classified as. It simply means we've given up on the idea that what you want and value is not possibly as valuable as what I want and value. And I think that's exactly why when you CEU, I believe, walks the walk of this. They talk the talk, but the walking of the walk means the interests of the other people here are of at least equal value to my own. And that's why we have open dialogues to figure out what we should do. And we have the advantage of, like you said, not having 6,200 warheads, nor any serious interest of harming one another. But the problem is that harm comes in many shapes and sizes, right? So we can have it on this global scale, but harm also.
A very interesting comment on this, though, and I know Thomas will want to go into a Q&A, so I will smoothly go there. You mentioned, Thomas, the grades, yes, and as an academic director of this whole show, my observation, which always fascinates me, is that I also teach less, but some in other programs which have much less experienced participants, people in their 20s doing their degrees. We have an average of 40 and 16 years work experience in CEU Executive MBA. We have people who are so accomplished that, many of them really don't, for career purposes, don't need this program. Yes, they want to grow. And yet, I have never taught a group of people who is more ambitious about their grades. Nobody needs the grade here. So yes, nobody needs a grade. Nobody is going to, show a transcript when they are a CEO already, or a senior manager of their, they may hang their diploma on the wall, which would be very nice. But nobody really, really needs our grades. Yes. and yet people are so passionate about it, yes, which shows you that yes, it is a safe space, because you know, if you are graded poorly by your peers, you're not going to lose a job. Nothing really is going to happen. But it is useful experience because of the nature of the people we have. So even though it really doesn't matter, it does matter for them. And it creates a very powerful dynamic when you can, you know, really learn how to operate in these situations when power is shared. Yes, there is no manager, there is no boss in a support team at our program. So you need to find a way to manage, and you have a clear outcome. As I said, you have a grade, which is a clear outcome, and it doesn't matter, but it does because of our innate ambition. And you need to achieve this outcome without a boss, without clear lines of hierarchy, yes? Nobody can, so the only way is to inspire. You can't influence, yes? You can't pressure. Yes, you don't have 6,200 warheads at your disposal. Yes?
I hope not.
No. So you need to learn to lead the other way. And I think from my conversations with executive fellows, this is one of the most important and transformational experiences of this program.
Yeah.
Yes, that people, I had people coming to me saying, please, let's reinstate typical academic hierarchy so that you grade me and I don't need to feel this burden of grading each other. Yes, because we know, you know, Erich Fromm wrote about it 100 years ago, that people want to escape the burden of freedom and responsibility. Yes. So it's, and most of our participants come from continental Europe or Eastern Europe, which have very vertical organizations, which is in many ways convenient. Yes. But the problem, of course, is that as we move to a knowledge-based economy, this kind of vertical silos are not really working very well anymore. Yes, and you need to understand and learn how you operate in much more flat, open organizations, and that's our specialty. Yeah. Thomas.
Speaking of specialty, my specialty is the Q&A session. I would like to move on to the Q&A session right now, in view of the time. And let's start with the elephant in the room. What about COVID? What are the COVID measures for on-site courses? Maciej, you can respond to that question in just a second. And just a comment that I've received, that I'm not wearing a mask, just so for the audience, so they know, we're in compliance with our hosts here with Advantage Austria in Bucharest, Sofia, and Kyiv, who required a so-called 3G certificate. So everybody of us is either recovered, brought a negative PCR test, not older than 24 hours, or the double vaccination or triple vaccination. So everybody of us is vaccinated, recovered, or brought a PCR test. And we were removing the mask only for the presentation. Once the presentation is done, we will wear our masks again. So please, Maciej, feel free to elaborate on the COVID measures on site.
Yes, and I am in my office in Vienna.
Maciej is isolating.
Yes. So Thomas is right. It's better to participate in the program on site, even though our technology is as good as you can get online. And it's perfectly fine. People often, especially people coming from different continents, do maybe 1 or 2 shorter modules online and then a longer ones on site. So that's also good. Once you are on site, we test you very, very intensively, and it's free. And it's part of the reason why it's so good and so reliable is we are in, the most livable city in the world, Vienna, which has been winning this, top ranks in this category for years. And one thing that it does is that everybody, residents, tourists, students who come to Vienna, every day can do a PCR at city's expense. So we are piggybacking on it. We have a process, which I'm not going to go into details about, but basically we ask you to do, a very short gargle test in the morning, and it's sent to the Viennese system. So we make sure that people coming in are not sick, or are not positive, not spreading the virus. Once we are in, we have, of course, masks and distancing, all the measures. The effect of all of this is, since the start of the pandemic, we had only one fully online module a year ago when there was total lockdown. It was impossible. All other modules were hybrid, so there were people on site, and we didn't have a single infection in the program. So I think that speaks for itself.
The next question is about the application requirements and the application process. Allow me to browse through this question or the answer, because we're short on time. The application requirements are pretty simple. We are looking for candidates with at least 8 years of work experience. Exceptions can be made, but they need to be argued. And 3 years of leadership experience. Applicants need to have a university diploma, university degree from any field of study. So anything from business to sports, from piano to pharmacology, everything is fine. And you would need to provide a proof of English, because we're an American accredited university, but you can provide the proof of English later in the application stage, and you can do those tests at home with Duolingo or a TOEFL home test or IELTS home test. So that shouldn't be the problem. Of course, you would need to provide documents like a CV and a motivation letter. I think that's obvious. That's as far as the application requirements are concerned. Speaking of the application process, once you have started your application online on our website and completed your application, we will revise it for completeness and correctness. You will be, assuming that you meet those criteria, you will be invited to an interview. The questionnaire that we are basing the interview on can be found on our website, because we're fully transparent. We're not going to play mind games during the interview. And for you, it's an advantage, because you can assess yourself based on that questionnaire. Where are my strengths and where are my weaknesses? So you get a sense on what we will be talking about. We will talk about your leadership style, your motivation, and your experience in the interview. Once you have passed the interview phase, you will be your application will be presented to an admission committee, because we're handpicking our participants. And then you will receive, in a timely manner, in only a couple of weeks, an admission decision. So it only takes a couple of weeks from the point of completing your application to receiving an admission decision. It's just a few weeks. 2 final questions. The first one is for you, Maciej, if you could keep it short and simple. Are there any exams? How does the assessment look like? Before I'm talking about the fellowships and financial support.
Yeah. So as we already discussed, it's mostly projects. There are some exams for more quantitative topics, and you do them outside of the module. You have a 10-day exam period when you can just select a 2-hour slot of your choosing. The only thing is, once you start it, it's through our online course management intranet. Once you start it, you need to finish it in one go. So you need to choose wisely your time, but it's very flexible. We don't waste your time during the modules on like writing an exam in a classroom. That never happens. And mostly for most classes, it's projects, it's teamwork. It's applying stuff that you learn to real life, because that's the spirit of, actually, that's the spirit of American universities, yes, which we proudly are.
In view of the time, I'm moving on to the last, but maybe most important question for some of our audience. is there financial support? Are there any scholarships? A clear and very loud yes. We offer a variety of scholarships. However, I cannot elaborate on all these fellowship and scholarship options right now, but feel free to reach out to me via email, and let's have a one-on-one consultation where I can advise you on your individual financial opportunities. We offer need-based scholarships, and we offer merit-based country-specific fellowships. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be an option that fits for you. But in order to talk about your individual situation, it's necessary to have an individual one-on-one consultation. So feel free to reach out to me via email, and let's arrange an appointment on Zoom, and let's talk about your application, how we can optimize it, and how we can get you the most financial support. Because we are happy to provide financial support. For us, it's not charity. We are investing in talent. We are investing in your talent. So based on that note, I would like to conclude this session. I would like to thank Elena for coming in tonight. I would like to thank very much Andrew for his superb keynote presentation. I would like to thank Maciej for his academic interaction with Andrew. Thanks everybody in Kyiv, Sofia, and Bucharest, and everybody online. Good night.